What's going on YouTube? Another D&D Advice Fridays. Today we'll be taking a look at the Ranger class and just seeing a little bit of what that class can do. But before we start, as always, don't forget to comment down below and hit that subscribe and that notification bell. Without further ado, let's start. Let's get into the Ranger class.
Let's get going.
So when it comes to the Ranger class as a whole is pretty much the martial version of a druid. Whereas druids really focusing on that natural energy, that connection with the beast and plants and stuff. The ranger really retains a little bit of that and takes it to wielding some martial weapons, firing off of bows, something to that degree. Um, Really surviving out in those wilds are more the popular way of incorporating the ranger, but you can also play a little bit of like a urban ranger as well. So when it comes to the ranger is what is known as a half caster. They get some martial prowess, but they get up to fifth level spell slots. Um, so just like your paladin. And so, of course, they start off with their strength and dexterity proficiency in saving throws, which has some usefulness in avoiding damage, which is good. And then, of course, with your skills and whatnot, you get those options of being proficient in your survival or your animal handling, your perception, your nature, that type of stuff, really reinforcing that, hey, I can be that. Let me talk to some plants and animals and stuff like that while firing off a bow from range. So they got a few interesting things in their kit. So of course they get their extra attack from being a martial character. They get favorite enemy right off gate. So the PHP version of favorite enemy allows you to track a certain type of enemy a lot quicker, whether it's goblinoids, apparitions, monstrosities, whatever, so you can track them a lot easier. You learn their language if they have a language, things like that. So that could potentially be kind of cool, depending on if you're going with that flavor, or if you prefer to go with the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything flavor of things. You basically get a spell slot less version of the Hunter's Mark spell in terms of favorite foe. So it depends on what flavor of ranger you want to do with that. Or like for another example is the PHP version is Natural Explorer, which you also get at first level, which really hones in on your awareness of that chosen environment that you're in, whether it's the Arctic, the forest, desert, coast, whatever, and just really helps you to survive a lot better in those chosen environments. Whereas the Tasha's version is Depth Explorer, which doesn't really hone in on that um, environment type of thing. It's a little bit more about your own ability checks and stuff like that. So, for instance, you get to have expertise in one skill as well as gaining a climbing and swimming speed, all through this Depth Explorer from Tasha's type of thing. So, depending on what flavor of ranger you're going for, you can definitely mix and match.
I, I really like the idea of the um, favored enemy or the natural explorer. I really feel like that gives you the ability to a lot of possibility to craft very different backgrounds for your character, right? You could say that you're some ranger from the desert that has had to fight oozes all of their life, and so you're a desert ooze fighter, which I think is kind of a neat little spin on this. So I like that aspect of picking a ranger.
Yep, definitely has a lot of versatility, and if you know the campaign you're in is going to be focusing on that exploration pillar of D&D, then the ranger is your go-to character for that.
Definitely.
So when it comes to the ranger subclasses, so one of the subclasses from the PHP is the hunter subclass. And the hunter subclass really focuses in on I'm going out in the wilds and hunting my prey down. So at several different levels, the hunter gets pretty much get their choice of two or three different options that they can pick up per subclass feature. So for instance, right away on third level, they get hunter's prey. So one of the things that they could potentially pick up, which I think is probably the most popular option of this section, is the Colossus Slayer. So whenever you hit a creature once per turn, if they don't have their full HP, you get to deal an extra D8 of damage to that person. So that's really good, especially once you have multiple ways of attacking, just to boost your damage up a little bit.
It's basically turned on the entire time if it's taken any damage, right?
Yeah. And a D8 is a nice chunk of damage. Another option that you could pick up at third level is Giant's Killer. So whenever a large or larger creature within melee range 5 feet of you attacks and misses with that attack, you can use your reaction to immediately attack that creature after that miss attack. So that's potential another use of your reaction without having to rely on somebody moving away from you. Or you can choose Horde Breaker, where once on each of your turns, whenever you make a weapon attack, you can make another attack with the same weapon against a different creature within 5 feet of that original target and within range of your weapon. So that really helps out when you're like surrounded by enemies and stuff like that, which may or may not come up during your campaign.
True, but still a good feature to keep in mind.
Yep. So definitely have some good stuff for like on 15th level, Superior Hunter's Defense, where you can choose from some good defensive features such as either evasion or uncanny dodge, or even stand against the tide, where that allows you to use your reaction whenever a hostile creature makes an attack, and that allows you to force that creature to repeat that same attack against another creature of your choice. So that could potentially be pretty decent. Although I feel like it's highly overshadowed by evasion and especially uncanny dodge.
Yeah, those are pretty powerful abilities to have.
Yeah, and I think the best option from those three is definitely uncanny dodge. Just the ability to use your reaction to half any one damage. That's pretty nice.
It is pretty nice. I think the choice there kind of comes down to whether or not you're in a magic heavy campaign or a non magic heavy campaign. If you know you're going up against a bunch of wizards and sorcerers at some point, the evasion might be a little bit better because you basically take no damage with area of effect spells versus the uncanny dodge. But I think in general, overall, you're right, Nakai. I think the uncanny dodge is probably the slightly better pick in general.
Yeah. The next subclass up is the Beastmaster, the one subclass with probably the most infamous history in all of D&D 5e. So the whole outlet for Beastmaster is you get this companion, this beastly companion that really comes by your side, whether it's a wolf or something like that, of CR, was it of CR 1/4 or lower, and once you start getting up higher in levels, that creature, that beast friend of yours, can really help you out in like scouting or taking the attack action, stuff like that. So that could be kind of useful. You kind of get your own always on find familiar type of thing. The one bad part about that I think Tasha's Cauldron of Everything really fixed is just that beast companion that you have. So in the PHP, it's limited to to CR one quarter or lower, which on third level it's
Not bad.
not bad. But once you start getting higher in level, a CR one quarter is not gonna do anything to anybody real quick.
Right, exactly.
Whereas in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, you get a couple more options for your beast in addition to that CR one quarter. So, for instance, you can choose either Beast of the Land, Air, or Sea, which gives a lot more HP and AC and attacking capabilities and things of that nature instead of the CR one quarter creature. So I think that really helps out the Beastmaster in bringing up their power level quite a bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that was a great addition.
Yeah. So now you so now you don't have to feel too guilty about giving up one of your attacks for your beast to attack. Instead of just, yeah, I'm just gonna have the beast take the help action all the time.
Yep. Yep.
So so if you enjoy having that pet, that companion along by your side all the time, then the Beastmaster is a good option for you. Now, on to what I think are probably the three strongest ranger options from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The first up is the Gloomstalker Ranger. So the Gloomstalker is all about hiding in those shadows, finding what's in those shadows type of thing, adventuring in the shadows, becoming one with darkness and the shadows. So they get a lot of cool stuff. So they get some cool spells, including Disguise Self, Rope Trick, Greater Invisibility, just to help that whole scouting, invisibility, hiding from folks type of thing. And then some cool stuff that they get is right away on third level they get Dread Ambusher as well as Umbral Sight. So with Dread Ambusher, you get to add your Wisdom mod to your initiative, which is always very good. And during the very first turn of every combat, not only is your movement speed increased by 10, but whenever you make a weapon attack, you get to make an additional weapon attack as part of that action. And if it hits, the target takes an extra d8 of that weapon damage type. That's really good. So already you're starting off with two attacks as part of your first turn action.
Yep. That is always really good.
Yep. And then that also means another proc in case you have Hunter's Mark up. And then with Umbral Sight is you gain a dark vision of 60 feet or 30 extra feet of dark vision if you already have dark vision. That's good already. So all you humans, dragonborns, and whatnot that don't have dark vision, you now have dark vision. You don't have to worry about giving away your position due to light.
The light. Yep.
Yep. And
Nice
then
little side benefit.
yep, and then also part of Umbral Sight, whenever you're in darkness, you're considered invisible to any other creature that relies on dark vision to see you, which are a lot of creatures. So pretty much to be able to see you in darkness, the creature has to have a special sense such as true sight, tremor sense, or blind sight. So, and you typically wouldn't find those creatures up until you get into tier 3, tier 4 levels of play anyway. So, this is a really strong ability, especially at early game. So, so overall, I think the Gloomstalker is very strong. It really doubles down on that martial prowess, especially within caves, the Underdark, stuff like that.
And it definitely has a slightly roguey feel to it. So, you know, there is that aspect of it also.
Yeah, which is actually a really good multi-class option to go a few level, at least 3 to 5 levels of Gloomstalker, and then go part rogue, like part scout rogue or whatever.
Yeah, great synergy right there.
Yep. And then next up, we have what's called a Horizon Walker Ranger. This ranger is all about portals to other planes and worlds and stuff like that. So they're really good on finding out what those um, what those portals are, where they are, how can we find them, type of thing. And they get some really good spells. I think one of the best spell lists in the Ranger class. They get things such as Banishment, Misty Step, Haste, which is an excellent spell for any martial character.
Yes.
Uh, as if you're playing a martial character, Haste should definitely be one of the top concentration spells for you.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is a spell list for a half magic user.
Yep. And then one of the cool things they get is on third level called Planar Warrior. So basically, is as a bonus action, you can pretty much call out one creature that you can see within 30 feet of yourself. And basically, the next time you hit that creature this turn, all damage becomes force damage, and that creature suffers an extra d8 of force damage from that attack, eventually going up to 2d8 extra points of damage. So that's really good. You can lay down a real good amount of hurt in that first turn. You Hunter's Mark or haste yourself up. Next turn, you go to town on that one creature.
I think the 11th level ability that you gain synergizes with this really, really well too, the Distant Strike, where when you take the attack action, you can teleport up to 10 feet before each attack to an unoccupied space.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you've made an additional attack, if you attack at least two creatures, you can make an attack against the third creature. So I just feel like that really synergizes really, really well with that Planar Warrior ability.
Yeah, I agree. So this is a really good class to play and really thematic if you know you're going to be dealing with those other worlds, and if you think you're going to go to be going through portals to like the astral plane or whatever it may be. This just might be the class that you want to play.
Yeah, definitely. Seems like this one would be a lot of fun to play.
Yep. So next up, what we have in the Ranger subclass is pretty much a very interesting class for the Ranger. So, do you want to play as Buffy the Vampire Slayer? If you do,
Well, who doesn't want to play as Buffy? I mean, that's the real question.
that's actually a very good question. Who doesn't want to play Buffy? But as long as you want to play Buffy the Vampire Slayer, then you should pick up the Monster Slayer subclass for the Ranger. So the Ranger is all about picking out that those certain creatures of the night that, for whatever reason you decide, I don't want that creature to live. So vampires, werewolves, whatever it may be. And they're really good at focusing down that single target per combat or per RP or whatever. So they get some interesting spells such as protection from evil and good, banishment, hold monsters. So really that single target type of stuff.
Very interesting that they get Zone of Truth in their list. Um, that seems like definitely like the odd man out, but it's still a spell. So
Yep. And basically, the interesting thing about the Monster Slayer is each one of their features kind of compounds on their initial feature. So basically, on third level, one of the things that you get is Slayer's Prey. So you can really determine your focus on one creature at a time and designate that creature as a bonus action. And the first time you hit that target with a weapon attack, it deals an extra d6 of damage. So kind of like a Hunter's Mark. That can also stack with Hunter's Mark, although it takes 2 turns to set up.
sure.
But this benefit lasts until you take any sort of rest or you designate a different creature with it. Now, if that wasn't already pretty good to start with, concentration less Hunter's Mark, it only gets much better from here on out. So, for example, uh, on 7th level, you get Supernatural's Defense. So, you get extra resilience against the target of your Slayer's Prey feature. So basically, is whenever that target forces you to make a save and throw or an ability check to escape grapple, you get to add a d6 onto that check. So or save and throw. So that's really good. It bolsters up
Yeah.
something. So if you know you have like you're fighting off against an archmage, for example, target that archmage. Now you have an additional d6 onto all of your saving throws that you know is going to come your way.
Yep. Nice little bonus. I think the 11th level ability that you gain is probably my favorite out of this list. Uh, it's obviously not straight up counterspell, but it's your poor man's counterspell. Magic user's nemesis. So when you see a creature casting a spell or teleporting within 60 feet of you, you can use your reaction to try and magically foil it. The creature has to succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell DC.
Yeah.
Like literally almost, like I said, it's not quite counterspell, obviously, but that's still counterspell. Like, it's pretty neat.
And and it's pretty good, especially if you happen to have like a wizard in the party or something like that. It's like, oh, you're casting a spell. All right, wizard, hold off in your spell slot for counterspell just yet. Let me use my reaction first.
Exactly. That's I think that is the synergy there with letting the wizard hold their counter spells for something bigger and badder is great.
Yep. And and if you happen to be taking care of everything with your reaction, that means the wizard or the sorcerer now has a lot more spell slots to play around with their other spells.
Yep.
So that's always a very good thing. So next up, from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, we have the Fey Wanderer subclass. So this is really the whole ranger from the Feywild type of deal. So what this is all about is, so for the spells they get some good stuff. Misty Step is always a great spell. Dispel Magic is a pretty good spell. Dimension Door is always a good spell. So it's really adding in a lot of that mobility type of deal onto the Ranger subclass. Uh,
Yeah.
so one not only does it add like mobility and some different tricky stuff, but it also adds a little bit into the RP element as well. Like for instance, on 3rd level they get Otherworldly Glamour. So basically, whenever you make a charisma check, you add your wisdom modifier in addition to that, which is, and you also get your choice of either deception, performance, or persuasion proficiency, which is pretty good because as a ranger, you're typically not going to have that great of a charisma score anyway. So being able to have a decent persuasion or deception or performance check, it's going to be pretty good.
Yep. That would be very good. I think another neat ability here is Fey reinforcements. Right. Again, relying totally on the fact that you're the Fey wanderer, but you can um, essentially ask for help from your kin and summon a Fey. I think that's pretty neat here too. Also, I also think it's very interesting that at 3rd level you get some sort of Feywild gifts, and some of these are pretty interesting. The one that made me I think chuckle the most is you faintly smell of cinnamon, lavender, nutmeg, or other comforting herb or spice. That one made me chuckle.
That is pretty interesting, and and just for kicks and giggles, if I ever had a player that picked that specific option for their Fey Wanderer, I would definitely make a side quest or something where they had to go find something in a bakery. And then the baker tries to put them in their batch of cinnamon rolls. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like I smell
No, no.
cinnamon. This is supposed to go in my rolls. So that would definitely lead some to some fun moments.
Yeah, I think that's a huge opportunity for shenanigans for sure.
So next up, last but not least, we have the Swarmkeeper Ranger. So the Swarmkeeper is all about that communion with insects and bugs and worms and that type of stuff. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart per se.
Mm.
So they get some interesting on spells. So they get things like Fairy Fire and Web, and they also get a Mage Hand as well, which is always good. And then they get no surprise Insect Plague.
Hmm. It's like it's supposed to work together.
Yep. So so they get some cool little features as they level up. So for instance, on seventh level, as a bonus action, they could gain a flying speed of 10 feet, and they can hover, which this lasts for a minute or until they're incapacitated, and they get to use this a number of times equal to their proficiency bonus. So, which is very good, because one of the big things for martial characters that they have always have trouble with is what do they do against flying characters, and if you happen to be a melee ranger, now you have a way to get up to those flying enemies, or to cross that little gap to get to the next enemy, or whatever it may be.
Yep. Very, very interesting. I kind of like the level 15 feature here, swarming dispersal. Basically use your swarm to gain resistance or to be able to teleport to an unoccupied space 30 feet away. But it conjures images of um, when in movies or whatever, when you swing at somebody and they just disperse into insects or butterflies or whatever. It sort of conjures that same image here, that you're like, nope, I'm going to dissolve into these things and reappear over there.
And honestly, the first thing that the Swarmkeeper Ranger makes me think of is always, as part of this channel, keeping it geeky. So I'm going to have to make another anime reference here.
As expected, as expected.
So what this subclass reminds me of is for those who are familiar with the show Naruto. It reminds me of the Aburame clan, which is this clan of bug wielding ninja that uses all these different beetles and whatnot to really swarm the foe and attack them with that. So this really conjures up that essence.
Yeah.
So overall, as a ranger class, I think the additions from Xanathars and from Tasha's really helped out in increasing the power and bringing the power of the ranger class up to where the other martial classes are. Might not be as bursty as the paladin or something like that, but I think rangers are in a pretty good spot now, and they're a really good class if you want to play that martial explorer type of deal. And I think it has a little bit of versatility on depending on what type of nature you actually want to go towards.
Yep.
So I would say definitely give the ranger a good thought now to definitely playing through the ranger and one of
Yep.
their many subclasses.
Yeah, I think it would be a great choice for anybody to play.
Yep. And without further ado, I think that brings us to the end of today's episode of the Ranger class. Definitely play a Ranger, and next time we'll be talking about everybody's favorite ninja class, the Rogue. Uh, until next time, YouTube, keep your life geeky.
Bye, everyone.